Thank you very much. I listened carefully, General Casey. You talked about the attitude about the defense of our country after Desert Storm and the Cold War, and that's where we were in 9/11. But at 9/11, the Army had 1,370,000 active duty. 300,000 in active duty. And we're battling against Iraq of 25 million that had been beaten 10 years before, against whose army had been disbanded, military had been put in jail, had Iraqis who had fought the Iranians during that period of time. We have 1,300,000. 5 years later, you're saying the current demand on our forces exceeds the sustainable supply. We are consumed with meeting demands of the current fight, unable to provide ready forces rapidly as necessary for potential. Our reserve components are performing an operational role which they are neither originally designed nor resourced. Current operational requirements for forces in limited periods between deployment necessitates a focus on counterinsurgency to the detriment of preparedness for full range of military missions. Soldiers, families, equipment are stretched by demands of lengthy, repeated deployments, equipment used in harsh environment, wearing out, far greater pace than expected. Who is this mythical military that's battling and taking on an army of 1,300,000 people and find ourselves in this kind of shape? Who is this incredible military force that is challenging the greatest military force that we had, even in 9/11? Who are they?
Are you talking about the insurgents and the terrorists that are operating inside Iraq and Afghanistan?
I'm talking about who has challenged our military, that had put the military in the condition that you've just described, when we had 1,300,000 at the start of the war against a country of 25 million, which we had been successfully beaten at 10 years before, and whose army had been basically dismissed, the military had been put in jail, and now we have this incredible force. And you talk about how we are going to, in the military, we're going to have to take on this increasingly threatening force that is out there, the enemy. How did this all happen?
Senator,
how did the greatest military in the world, and how is this going to alter and change? How are we going to alter and change it and shift it?
Senator, I go back to what we said about decisions that were made in the 90s. This force in numbers was
1.3 million.
But it was not organized, trained, and equipped fully.
1,300,000 against what? What were they against? Who were they against?
Half of those are in the Guard and Reserve.
All right, but who are they? Who's their opposition?
The opposition was originally the Iraqi military, which
and the military they were defeated and disbanded. So right. Who is with this 1,300,000? Who was it that we can't?
But I go back to that 1,300,000, Senator, was not properly organized, trained, and equipped.
To take on an Iraq of 25 million that had been defeated
to take on
10 years before and had a defense budget of what?
To take on anything, Senator. You know, the National Guard, there's a perception that
right,
the National Guard left a bunch of its equipment in Iraq and Afghanistan. They never had it.
Keep moving. Just to follow up on Senate 11, on the numbers of people in the, as I understand it, over half of the West Point class of 2000 left as soon as possible. 2001 fared slightly better, 54%. So are we losing half of the West Point class now? Are these figures that we've been...
Those figures sound about right, Senator, and as I told Senator Levin,
that is the best that we can do.
Yeah, and that is slightly above historical norms.
And that's acceptable for just as somebody who's been pointing and take it seriously, the people I appoint to the military academy. I'm really rather shocked that the people that I appoint that get that opportunity to serve are not staying in there. They make all kinds of representations when they're looking for these appointments to go to the military academy. And they're outstanding young people. Well, why is it that they refuse, that they're not staying on in with the kinds of opportunities they have? Yeah. And the expressions I'm sure they've made to each and every one of us. We appoint a certain percent, the House, the President selects the others, and only half of the people that we appoint are staying in the military at West Point.
Yep. And Senator, all those decisions to stay or go are very personal decisions. As I talk to the young captains and majors, a big factor is the extended deployments that we're putting them on. And I said we have to put ourselves back in balance.
Just let me come to the point that Senator Warner, this is on today's Washington Post, it talked about Army Lieutenant General Odierno, the commander. It's unclear how long the window, as Senator Warner pointed open, the decline, in, at least as they define, in sharp reduction on attacks on troops and civilians. It's unclear how long the window. The lack of political progress calls into question the core rationale behind the troop buildup President Bush announced in January. It's premised on the notion of improved security, create space for Iraqis to arrive at new power sharing. And if there is no break through the next summit? If that doesn't happen, Odierno said, we're going to have to review our strategy. Here's General Campbell, First Cav, complained last week that Iraqi politicians out of touch. Ministers don't get out. They don't know what the hell is going on the ground. These are military figures talking about it. Aren't we effectively outsourcing American military and security issues to the politicians in Iraq that refuse to leave the buildings and go out and see what's going on and making an accommodation so that we might be able to see the beginning of the withdrawal of American troops?
I wouldn't agree with the statement they were outsourcing security.
Well, what's another way of stating that these generals are saying? He couldn't say it any better. The ministers don't get out. They don't know what the hell is going on the ground. Yeah. And we're still staying over there. How long are we going to stay over there till the civilian leadership understand what's going on the ground?
Senator, I think a better way to say it is what we have all said, that the solution in Iraq is ultimately not a military solution, and it's a political solution. And I applaud those officers for speaking out about that.
And I join you and applaud those officers for speaking out, because that's the type of information this body needs.
Mr. Chairman, I think we all, by the way, are grateful when military officers speak out, speak honestly. We ask them to do that. They do that. Their comments this morning, as far as I'm concerned, are just what many of us have been saying for the last few years, and we're grateful for that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, I'm concerned that perhaps something that General Casey or I said has been misunderstood based on Senator Kennedy's question. I just want to make sure the record is correct. As far as the number of active duty soldiers, and perhaps we said something referring to the total military, but the active duty military in 2001 was about 482,000, and we're now at about 520,000, but with Guard and Reserve, it approaches 1 million, just to make sure that the record reflects when you look at the rest of the military, Air Force and Navy, obviously the numbers are great, but I want to make sure the record was correct on that.
So, okay, thank you.
Is that just Army or
Army, 520,000 active duty Army, and roughly 500,000 in the Guard and Reserve. So the total Army is around 1 million soldiers today.
Thank you.